Still not sure what I am. I'm just living my life, day to day.
You should be out there helping people.
You think I asked for any of this? I was put in some tank like an exotic fish. Came out with abilities. I just want to be left the hell alone.
Well, that would be a waste.
Harlem, perpetual symbol of hope and prosperity. Too much happens in the shadows. People fear what they can't see.
This place is our reputation, our legacy, our blood. Hit every business and squeeze them hard. Everybody wants to be the king.
Sometimes if you want justice, you have to get it yourself.
Hungry arms. The hungry arms.
Give us the money.
I don't like your tone. You have my word, ma'am. I've got you.
I'm from a city where having a heart is not suggested. I'm a maverick, a tapping backs, I'm a savage. I'm cleaning braces with tongue and vacuum.
You wanna go to war? I'll take you to war.
You might be bulletproof, but Harlem ain't.
This city is supposed to represent our hopes and dreams. You have to fight for what's right every single day.
Why don't you just tell us your name?
The whole neighborhood is yapping about how 2 goons got the beat down last night.
I heard it was 4 guys.
Luke Cage!
What up, guys?
Congratulations, man. I gotta say, you not only got like the role that I think a lot of people dream of getting, what someone called the role of their career, you guys knocked it out of the park. You kicked ass. The show is great. Congrats.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm paying him to say that, so it's kind of hard to really enjoy it. It's
I think
tough.
I went above and beyond too, so I'm gonna be collecting a little bit more than
I know.
what we
I'm going to give
agreed
an extra
upon.
10 spot for that. His enthusiasm was really authentic.
10 spot, 20, please. Mike, you start with this character in Jessica Jones, the Kristen Ritter property, or the Jessica Jones property that Kristen Ritter is a part of. At that point, when you first signed on, did they tell you we're going to build a show around your character as well, or was it while you were in the process of making that show that they started talking to you about the Luke Cage show?
No, the funny thing is that everyone, well, not everyone, certain people wanted to call it like a spin-off, and they were like trying to say, well, the character was established in Jessica Jones, and after the fact, Marvel was like, wow, this is a cool thing. Let's get you your own show. Marvel doesn't work that way. It was already laid out when I talked to them about playing this role. It would be introduced in Jessica and then going on into Luke Cage series, solo series, and then into the Defenders. So it was kind of laid out as at least a 3-part venture. So yeah, that's how it worked.
And what did you have to do to get this role? Because I'd imagine this is a coveted role that a lot of people were going after. Was it a long audition process for you?
Actually, it wasn't that long. I think I've definitely been through a few longer processes, and also I've known people who've done other jobs who have gone through really much more arduous processes than this one, and they still don't get the job. I mean, it's twice as long, and you go to the bitter end, 7 times you're in a room with the same people, and they're down to you and one other person, and you don't get the role. That wasn't the case here. I felt like it was pretty matter-of-fact and straightforward. I went in, there were several other actors there. We read, I feel like when I read the first time, initially before the testing process, they felt they had a gut feeling about me coming in. So when I came in, I did the process, and then like after the first round, it was just me and like all the ladies who I was trying to chemistry read with rather. So I felt like in some regard, I was like, wow, it's interesting. It's kind of like, I didn't expect that. So I read with Kristen, and it was very important that Jessica Jones and Luke have a chemistry because, as you know in the comics, there's a love interest, or there's a love, I would say triangle, but there's Kristen's character, Jessica Jones, and obviously Claire Temple plays a part later on in the series, at some point in my series. But Luke has several love interests, but the overall, yeah, he gets around a little bit.
Lucky Luke.
Lucky Luke, they call him. That's what they call him, Lucky Luke. So it was very important that her and I share a chemistry, and it worked out. We connected immediately, and I think it's paid off.
Now, so they have this planned out that Luke Cage is going to happen. It's going to be released after Jessica Jones. But that's just a plan that they're going to do a series. And you're cast for that. Had they brought on the showrunner already? Had people been talking about what that show was going to look like, what the story was going to be?
No, not at all. I went into this kind of blindly, in a sense. I mean, I trusted Marvel because they had established such a great track record. First thing I did was look at Daredevil. And Daredevil hadn't quite premiered yet. It had been talked about. I was watching some of the stuff that they were doing, trailers and stuff like that, but I wasn't even thinking about being a part of that universe. It didn't even dawn on me. I saw Daredevil. I saw Charlie Cox was a part of it, and I remember watching him in Boardwalk Empire. I was a fan of his. I knew his work, and I said, oh, this is a very interesting role, and I thought to myself, wow, what a great opportunity for Charlie as an actor to be able to do this kind of role, and it seems so dark and so grounded and so real, and I felt like, wow, cool opportunity. Anyway, lucky him. I'm not even thinking about what else is out there as far as that series of characters, and then lo and behold, they come up with Luke Cage, and I didn't know the showrunner at the time, so I was brought in with Melissa Rosenberg, who was the showrunner for Jessica Jones. So initially, she had to cast me. Melissa Rosenberg and Jeff Loeb, the head of Marvel Television. I met with him and Kareem Zreik, who was also one of the producers there, and several other people. And initially, basically, it was about casting me for that role within Jessica Jones series. And then they hadn't found the showrunner yet for Luke Cage, so they were still looking. They were getting pitched by a lot of people. Cheo comes along, knocks their socks off with his pitch. I still hadn't seen the material yet. All I knew was what Melissa had shown me. So by the time I was almost finished filming Jessica, by the time I saw pages from Luke Cage, I saw the first 2 episodes, and I was like, wow, this is great. This is blowing me away because I really trusted what Cheo's vision was. He's a Stanford grad. The guy has comic book, credibility. He's a comic book geek, and he is a hip-hop aficionado, writing for Source and Vibe. That's a great combination. When I saw that, I was like, man, I was like, well, I trust these guys because they really made the right choice. I mean, it was hard to find someone who could do all these things, and they found it in Cheo.
And I said this yesterday when we had Simone here, who plays Misty Knight, that what is so wonderful about the show is that it's not just about a black superhero that's like a token in a white superhero world or anything like that. This is an awesomely beautiful black show. And I loved it so much for that. I love the soul music. I love that there's hip hop. I love that there's an action sequence that has Bring the Ruckus, which I think any Wu-Tang fan has been waiting for to happen since they first heard that song.
Yeah.
When you got these scripts, when you knew that this show was going to come down the road, and you started getting these scripts, were you aware that the tone of the show was going to be like this, or was that a surprise to you as well?
No, I mean, I think probably episode 3 is when I really, the tone of the show really clicked for me. Because while the show is very grounded, and I would describe it as soulful, and we would also describe it as inclusively black. See, there's a thing that people talk about. They call it a black show because obviously there's black actors in it. There's a lead actor, myself, who's happens to be a black guy. The law enforcement is a black woman. One of the main antagonists is a black man, black woman. There's so many black characters. People get hung up on the fact that, it's kind of a black show. I mean, you got to have a tagline in some way, but we like to call it inclusively black in the sense that when you're watching something that is not of your race, and I hate to use that word because we're all a part of the human race, but when you're going to go race, I guess you got to, divide it somehow. So just in terms of what's different. So some people I look at shows that are not black shows, and I'm not thinking about them being non-black shows, but I look for authenticity. So if I'm looking at a show, I'm hoping to find a real character going through real experiences that are specific to him and who he is or who she is in their world. So then I care. I don't necessarily have to relate to them in the sense that, yeah, I'm not Jewish, I'm not, short, or I'm not a woman, but I still can relate to their experiences and their struggle as a person. So with this series, what fascinates me about it and what we're trying to get across is that Luke Cage has problems like everyone else. He tries to pay his rent like everyone else. He's working maybe under the table like some people maybe in this room, for different reasons. You're just getting cash in hand. Who knows what your hustle is for different reasons. So he has to hustle. He has to think about things in a larger picture sense. And he also has to think about things moving forward, like what's the future going to hold for him? He's not a dumb guy by any stretch of the imagination, but he doesn't have like a college degree. He's not one of these guys. He's not a guy who holds a lot of degrees, but that doesn't mean he's stupid. He reads, he's self-aware, he's self-analytical, and he's not a hothead. So I love that about the guy, and I call him a Renaissance man. He's under development. So as life goes on, this is what Luke's thinking about. Now he just happens to have these abilities, and these abilities don't solve all of his problems. Sure, he could just go into a bank and rip the door off and take all the money, but that's not the kind of guy he is. He has a moral compass, and he's trying to spread through the community that basically hard work pays off, and so he's going to sacrifice and make sure that he does things the right way. Because remember, he's wrongfully convicted. He's not really a criminal. Okay.
Absolutely, he's wrongfully convicted.
Wrongfully convicted.
But he's also incredibly smart about his community. He knows the history of his community, and when confronted with someone who doesn't know the history, he's very willing to teach them a little lesson as to who people are and what things represent in the world of Harlem.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I talked about with Cheo about was the fact that, let's just get some things clear and talk about what his through line is as far as what makes Luke tick. And so for Luke, he's a guy that, yes, he's a bit of a loner and he makes decisions. He's the kind of guy, I think he walks the path less chosen. Sometimes I think people talked about this before, and I'll be more specific in the sense that, the N-word is used a lot in the series. The word is used a lot in society. People throw it around. You walk past people in the street, they use it. You turn around, it could be a black guy, it could be a white guy, it could be a Spanish guy, it could be anybody. People just throw the word around. It's in the common vernacular. That's just the way it is. I myself am not a big fan of the word, but at the same time, that's just my personal preference. We can agree to disagree. Have I used the word? Sure. It's come out before in life. I enjoy it when Chris Rock uses it because I find it particularly funny. But
I do too.
I find it particularly funny, full disclosure. But for Luke, I felt like we had to try and make him unique in some way, and I think it fit that he wasn't the kind of guy that threw that word around a lot because he was trying to do something different. He was trying to kind of be a different person. And while it's hard to sometimes be unique and be different from your colleagues because there's peer pressure, people do things and say things because sometimes people around them do so, and you want to fit in. Luke is not that kind of guy. You can do what you want to do, and he's going to do what he wants to do. And that's your right. That's your prerogative. So we talked about that, and I said I think he's the kind of guy that doesn't use it. That's almost superhero-like in a sense in itself because it's such a hard thing to be different nowadays in every way. In the way you dress, in the way you walk, in the way you talk, in the way you see things in life, in the opinions you share, because in this day and age, social media, you can't say anything without someone completely trying to tear you apart, which is one of the reasons I don't have social media. But that's another story.
Can I say good for you on not having social media?
Well, look, I don't want to bash it because, guys, I know a lot of people have social media, and it's really a good thing for a lot of people who are like, entrepreneurs and things like that. I just feel like for my business, it's hard for me to then sometimes switch off and turn off the machine of Mike Colter trying to always push Mike Colter's agenda because I do a lot of work that focuses on me, and God forbid, I do not want to be a narcissist. So it's nice to detox from myself sometimes. So anyway, so back to the N-word. It's Luke's one of the things he does not use it. So I just felt like that was a really kind of good, strong stance to take.
And you said that the show is. I want to talk about some of the stunts in the show and some of the amazing work that you do with those stunts. But you say the show is inclusively black, and I talked about this a little bit with Simone yesterday. And I think a lot of people are having this conversation in regards to the show is what it's like to have an African American superhero that's wearing a hoodie and redefining that image of the African American man in the hoodie, which was sort of stolen from the community 2-3 years ago with Trayvon Martin. Was that something that you were aware of when you were shooting when the show made that decision? Did you guys have conversations about it?
Yeah, that was an early conversation between Cheo and I, about what he wore, and the hoodie, obviously it's to me, the hoodie is a generic thing.
That's what I mean.
But it's taken on a very specific thing because of what happened to Trayvon Martin, and I'm sure some other people in society who their names are not talked about a lot. It's this conclusion that if you're a black male and you're wearing a hoodie, you are obviously a threat. A lot of people wear hoodies because it's cold and it's chilly and you want to cover your head up. When a black male wears it, all of a sudden they're a target, and sometimes without the hoodie. Let's be real. So we felt like that was something that was practical because Luke was trying to hide his identity a little bit, and we felt like, yes, symbolically we want to make a stand and to sort of say we stand with you people who are going through this struggle, and we're with you, and Luke is a symbol of that. And so symbolically, we knew that what we were doing was going to kind of resonate with a lot of people, and we're okay with that. We embrace it. We don't have an agenda. We're not a political show, but there are things we do that have political connotation, and it's okay. We're trying to create conversations, and everybody's going to digest it differently and have a different spin on it, and that's okay. It's about open conversation, open dialogue.
Absolutely, I applaud it. I thought it was radical and a beautiful thing to do.
Yeah.
The stunt work in this show, you have to do a lot of fighting, a lot of stunts. Did you have to train for this?
Well, stunts are something I never thought I would enjoy, and as an actor, you don't go to. I mean, there are stunt schools, and they have classes to do stunts, but most actors don't really focus on it too much because they're not thinking that I'm going to be called upon to do a lot of stunts. I'm an actor. That's what they do. I'm a stunt guy. I'm going to do the acting part. But with me, it's hard to double me, so a lot of times I have to do my own stunts because you can see it's not me if it's someone else. So
why is it hard to double you?
Well, a couple reasons. Really, okay, so here's the thing. So most times you do stunts, you have wigs on. Most people have hair. First thing you do as a stunt double, you color the hair exactly the same as the person you're playing or doubling for, so that helps a lot. So at a glance, when you're watching a stunt, you go, that's the same person. Same hair color, more or less the same height. Me, I have a bald head, so you can kind of see exactly who the person is. It's not, you don't have any cover. There's no hair. And then also size-wise, I'm 6'3", about 235, a little more, sometimes less, depending how much I ate that day. So guys my size, I had to put on weight for the role, but guys my size usually are athletes, and they're usually former athletes. And former athletes have a lot of aches and pains and a lot of wear and tear in their body. So when you're asking a stunt person to do, you want a stunt person who is not, doesn't have a lot of wear and tear in their body, so they can then do the stunt that they don't want you to do because they're afraid to lose the actor. So for me, these guys usually have they have knee problems. I didn't play sports, so I don't have knee problems. I don't have a lot of real bad issues. So when we're getting stunt guys that are my size, they usually they've been around the block a few times. They're falling into the business from athletics or sports, and so it's just difficult to find a good stunt guy. But I have one, but it's hard to come by.
So you found yourself doing a fair amount of stunts.
Fair amount, about 90% of the stunts, unless it was something that required them to put me on a harness and yank me through the air or throw me through a glass or set me on fire. It was pretty much my stunt. Yeah.
Any minor injuries?
I tore my rotator cuff in my left shoulder either through working out or a combination of that and stunts, and I felt it was nagging, and I eventually, between the shooting of Jessica and Luke, I had a chance for it to heal. I had a procedure done that sped up the process, and it was lucky because I thought I didn't know how I was gonna get past that. So I got the rotator cuff healed. I think, and I probably I got hit in the face with a bat once, and that kind of that hurt, but that healed in a couple days. Little minor
hit the face with a bat. That kind of
that kind of hurt.
Horrible.
That kind of hurt. Yeah, minor things. The stunt guys go through a lot more. They break things, they twist things, they tear things, and they have to come back and go to work, or at least they have to. That's how they make a living. So I don't want to whine too much because I got to hang around these guys. I don't thinking I'm soft.
Were you blown away when you would get to set and you would see some of the actors that they cast around you in this show? The supporting cast on the show is phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I got spoiled. I was in A Good Wife for a while, and A Good Wife was like a revolving door of just talented people coming in.
If you were like an amazing supporting actor working in New York City, you were making an appearance on.
Yeah,
Good Wife.
exactly. So I just got spoiled with that, and so I was used to having great people around me, and so when we started looking, they started looking for people. I was just adamant about, this is not just my show. Yes, it's Luke Cage. Yes, I'm playing Luke Cage, but I want to have a show that people could enjoy even when Luke Cage is not on the screen. And it's important for the antagonist to be as equally as interesting as the protagonist, at least to some degree, because you have to be able to make the audience commit to what they're watching. And so as much as you hate or care about someone and you get invested, that's what's important. So to have a good show, an ensemble show, is what I was after. All the shows that I like are very good ensemble shows, and I really thought it was important for us to hit upon that.
What's a show that you really like right now?
Now, obviously, I'm like a lot of people. I like Game of Thrones, like everybody else. I'm not sure if you guys are Game of Thrones fans, but it's a good show. It's a really great show, and what I like about that show is and luckily we got Finn Jones, who's playing Iron Fist. He's from the Game of Thrones. What I like about the show is that they go from different locations and different worlds and different storylines, and they are. I think each storyline is well crafted, and so you get to get invested in every storyline. And even if the character only has a few scenes, because if you ever notice, there's only a couple scenes sometimes for each character, but they're so rich and so well thought out and so developed, you get invested. And so every death, everything has meaning. There's not many throwaway characters in that series, and it's a very large cast. You know, you look at that. I mean, so many actors in that show. I feel like it's a well-produced show, so that's one of my shows I like to watch.
You referenced the Good Wife, which you were on. Did you feel spoiled on the Good Wife? Because I look back at the Good Wife as, even though it won awards, still one of the most underrated dramas that was on television. And I think it was underrated because it was on CBS. There was 22 episodes. It didn't get the kind of like cable prestige talk that a lot of shows got. But every single episode of that show was a masterpiece in writing and the acting. Did you, when you were on that show, did you have a feeling of like, God, what am I going to do after this?
I always thought that, work begets work in a sense, and I felt like there was always going to be something around the corner. You do worry that maybe the work won't be as fulfilling because you can't control that. You just hope that something happens or falls in your lap or something is on the horizon as an actor. You try and enjoy what's in front of you. I don't look too far ahead in life because you just, it's no point. You may as well just, enjoy the moment. Be in the moment. It's very difficult. Be in the moment. Just savor and just take a deep breath and just worry about today, because tomorrow is not really promised to anyone. I'm just one of those guys, when I look at The Good Wife, I never worried about, the fact that, sometimes the show didn't get the accolades or attention it should have. And I know a lot of people complain about, awards and accolades in this business. I'm not one of those people. Maybe one day I will be a complainer about awards, because then I won't have anything else to complain about. I'll be like, man, I'm not getting enough awards. This is really, I'm bored. At first I was worried about work, but now I'm getting enough awards, man.
I'm bored with my mansion. I
want
awards
with my
now.
Mansion. I'm bored with, I need awards. And I'm not there yet. So I look at it as, it's hard to, it's so competitive. There's so much content out there. They were up against cable shows, and there's so many, networks. There's Hulu, there's Amazon, obviously Netflix, there's HBO, Showtime. If you're on a network show now, it's very difficult to get that prestige or that buzz. And the fact that they were still able to get a few awards here and there, nominations, spoke volumes for the show. Because Breaking Bad was out during that run, Homeland. There were just so many really, really good television shows out that kind of, peaked during the run of The Good Wife. So I think as much as, they feel like they probably didn't get their due credit, it still was a success, and it has a lot of fans. I mean, I was just in London and Paris, and I got to tell you, promoting Luke Cage, but 90% of the people that walk up to me was The Good Wife, in both places, and that's, that still says a lot.
Did you learn anything from Juliana Margulies and Kristen Ritter being the sort of number one on the call sheet for the shows that they were a part of when you sort of jumped onto your show and became kind of the number one? Yeah,
I think, I think it's, to be a good leader, you have to be a good follower first. Everybody should probably, know that before you ever aspire to have all of the power in your hands, as it were, being the number one on the call sheet. Because if you can't follow, then chances are you won't be a good leader. If you're being divisive and being a difficult person behind the scenes, if you're trying to always steal people's thunder and trying to create issues and create problems for your leads and your co-stars, then you're probably going to have a problem being in another position, because what goes around comes around. You want to create an environment that people can work in. And I remember Juliana, it was always very professional with her. She has been in this business a long time. She's a veteran. She's been in quite a few TV series and had success. It always felt like, she was just, one of the cast members. And that's something that, is very important when you're an actor trying to do your best work. You want the space to work. And it sounds like very common, but when you walk on a set, I don't know if anyone has ever been in a situation, but you walk on a set, there's a lot of egos. You know, there's a lot of egos every place you go. A lot of like, who's this person, who's that person, and I know for me and for Luke Cage, I never wanted to create that atmosphere for anybody. I want everybody to walk on set, not worrying about if they're going to keep their job because they pissed off Mike Colter. I mean, good Lord, if that's what they're worried about, then we're in trouble. You know, I really wanted people to come in and do their best work and kind of feel at home and just bring their A game, because ultimately, if they're not good, then the show's not good, and then more than likely, I'm going to probably get the blame for it. You know, they're going to go, "Wow, that show sucked," and Mike's fault. It's probably Mike's fault. You know, that's how it is. I was really nurturing, I think, of the cast members, and I learned that from being behind people who also displayed those kind of characteristics. It's important to pay attention and learn. Even if they're bad leaders, you want to learn from that too. You go, that's what you don't want to do, right there.
Let's open it up to the audience for some questions. I would believe that some of you have some questions out there. Right here.
Hi. I'm a huge fan of The Good Wife. Lamont Bishop, you played that with both good and bad sides. He was a man with good intentions, but he may not have done so in the best ways. What did you take away from that character? And
I always thought that with him, you know, I was always a champion of his of defending him. I always felt like people, you know, first thing they say, he's a drug pin. He's a drug kingpin. You know, I never saw him that way. I just saw him as a businessman who had drugs in his portfolio. He had a lot of businesses, you know, dry cleaning, you know, there's horse stables, you know, gyms, you know. He owned a lot of different businesses, and so everyone focuses on that. I looked at it as the same way as, you know, leaders in this world, you know, he's just doing what it takes to make money. And I mean, I always said the pharmaceutical business is one of the most corrupt businesses in our country. I mean, you know, things that's going on with EpiPen right now, and talking about how they raise the price on EpiPen, and people who need this drug, I mean, and obviously they create this environment that you cannot compete with because this person has a contract. This is who provides this drug. And then the next year you go for that drug is gone now because they have a new drug that's more important and more powerful. This person's providing that drug. It costs this much money with insurance. And if you don't have insurance, it's $800 a pill or it's $500 for this little bit of cream. And some of the stuff either can kill you if you take too much of it, or it gives you side effects in which you'll have to have another drug to counteract those side effects. And I'm thinking, well, Lamont, you know, sells a little weed, maybe. And yes, he has maybe some of his, you know, associates sell some cocaine, which, I mean, these are dangerous drugs. I'm not downplaying that, but how is the legal drugs with these billion-dollar industry listen, people get killed all the time behind the scenes for doing stuff that you would never imagine. This is a very corrupt business. And I said to myself, he's no different than any of these people. His kid goes to a private school, who lives in an affluent neighborhood. He makes a phone call like some politicians, and some guy somewhere that he's never met gets killed. And he goes and has dinner with his family, and he's still caring about the people around him, and those people don't matter that much because he's not in their lives, and it happens all the time. And so somehow they paint him as this bad guy. I never saw him that way. I just saw him as a guy who was in an interesting position and wanted to stay out of prison because obviously some people would put him in if they found some of the things he was doing. I mean, that's kind of how I looked at it.
Do you see Cottonmouth as a bad guy?
You know, from Luke's point of view, sure. If I was Cottonmouth, I wouldn't see myself as a bad guy. No.
Next question.
First question is, what is the most interesting thing you learned about Luke as you were researching for the role, and what is the message you hope people take away from the show?
I always thought about the most interesting thing I think I found out about Luke was that, like Luke is, I guess he's a humble guy, and he's basically a person who does not crave the spotlight. It's about other people, and he doesn't want to have the spotlight on him. And so in some way, I looked at him. I learned this in Jessica, actually, because people talk about that show. It was geared for Kristen's character, for Jessica Jones. Now, Luke, knowingly, everyone knew he's going to have his own show. He's a lead character, yes, but how do you play this? How does this character take a back seat to Jessica? How does this character fit into her world as seen through Jessica's eyes and still be true to who Luke is? It takes a very strong, confident man, I think, sometimes in the society to be with a woman who is established, who has something for herself, and she's the focal point, and people are not necessarily talking about him, but they're talking about her, and he's still there to comfort her and to be there for her and all this nurturing stuff, and not try to sabotage her because he's not jealous. And I felt like Luke was one of those people that it takes a special person to just do that, to be that person, and to not get really petty, and to not let what seems to be her time and her shine kind of, start to affect you. I mean, Luke was completely, I think, supportive of her, and he thought that what she was able to do and what she needed to do, she could do on her own. He wasn't trying to be, I'm Luke, and I'm going to take care of this for your baby, and I'm going to, knock this guy out and all this stuff. He's like, I'm here if you need me, that kind of thing. And a lot of women, that's all they need. They just need a little support. They don't need you to take over and take the whole thing from them. They just want support, and I think everybody wants that. So that cued me into who he kind of is inside, and then the other question, sorry, I missed the other question.
The message you hope people take away from the show.
The message about Luke Cage, I think overall, is that ultimately no one's perfect. I think that, Luke has never said that he is perfect. I mean, we market the show as a wrongfully convicted man. That's true. But there's a line in the show Luke talks about, there are things that he may have done that he may not have been, caught for or something like that. I think everyone has done something in this room at some point, no one knows about it, and they go, well, I probably got in trouble if someone have known about that, but they don't know. Now, does that make us a bad person? Does that mean that if we had gotten caught and people knew about it, would it be a just result? How do you kind of like deal with that? How do you deal with the fact that sometimes you do things that are wrong and you don't get caught for them, and you go and you get to walk about and some people get caught? Then you point the finger and you go, that person's a bad person because they got caught. I mean, we do it all the time. We blame people, we judge them, and so Luke is not there. He knows that there's a gray line, that sometimes karma comes into things, and sometimes you do things and eventually you get caught for them. And it has nothing to do with what you did, but what you did in the past and stuff. So sometimes the past catches up with you. So Luke I think he's a realist. And I feel like if everybody looks at the world in that way, there'll be a lot less finger pointing and a lot less judging.
Absolutely. I think we have time for one more question. Right? Oh, hi.
Hi, Mike. First of all, congratulations to you.
Thank you.
I low-key want to call out Black tomorrow so I can stay home and like binge watch the show. But
Well, I think you guys as an excuse. I think you can call in for deaths, really ill, being very ill, and then Netflix launching shows. I think that's one of the excuses now for valid excuses to not go to work or school.
You heard it here first, people.
Yeah.
Right? All right. This is a two-parter. So, what does playing a pivotal character such as Luke Cage mean to you, and how has this particular role changed you?
Pivotal character. I guess every actor, performer wants at some point to have a chance to play an indelible character that resonates with people across all walks of life. And I think anytime you get to play one, what that means is the character hopefully will be complex and nuanced and have a unique perspective and be original and kind of break some boundaries some way, shape, or form. And I think that for an actor means that in some way, shape, or form, they get to use everything that they have at their disposal. Because as artists, we're always kind of trying to do something that usually in this business you're diminished in some way, shape, or form. Like if you have a lot of ability and you get to do something that you love, not often do you get to do it to its fullest extent. Like we have a lot of ability sometimes, and sometimes we only get to show a little bit of it. So I think sometimes what we are craving in life is to be able to show all of ourselves in every way, and there's very few times you get that opportunity. So for an actor, these kind of roles come along every so often, and if you can get a chance to play a role that allows you to do that, you feel a fulfillment that you don't often feel. So when that happens, you have to enjoy it, and that's kind of what I'm doing right now, just enjoying it. And then the changing me, I don't know. I think it's made me more patient. I think it's one of those things where it's not always about what I feel like sometimes, because this is a job where when you're playing a superhero, a global superhero, and then you're kind of like a Marvel superhero, and this is like first black superhero, all that stuff. It's not always going to be about you. Mike sometimes is like, wow, really, what do we need to do? And it's about other people. Sometimes other people really need you, and they really need you to do something for them. It's about making somebody else feel good and changing their day, and kind of, doing a little of that. Sometimes it's kind of like, good deeds for the day. And so sometimes in life, there are things I don't feel like doing, but I think I do it because I know it's important to other people. So it's changed me in that respect, and so made me a little less selfish, I believe.
Before I let you go, I'm going to ask you one more question. How are things going on Defenders right now?
Defenders is revving up. We have not started shooting yet, but they're writing a lot of good storylines, and I've heard about it. I'm going to go meet with Marvel to get some feeling for what the season holds. There's going to be a lot of characters in it. It's going to be a very ensemble group, as the rest of them have been. But I can't tell you anything real because I haven't watched, I haven't read anything specifically. So we're waiting. We're waiting like everyone else.
Well, while we're waiting, we can tune into Luke Cage, which is premiering tomorrow, Friday, September 30th, and it's so badass. Mike,
Yes.
thanks so much for being here, man. Thank you.